The stars had never looked so cold to Admiral Catherine Cole. She stood on the bridge of the Terran warship, Enduring Hope, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the holographic display that showed the end of everything she had ever known. 3,000 Virathi warships hung in the darkness around Earth like a swarm of metal locusts, their weapons slowly charging with a light that promised death. Catherine was 53 years old. She had served in the Terran Defense Fleet for 30 years. She had fought pirates and rebels and hostile alien races, but she had never seen anything like this. The Virathi Dominion ruled 9 galaxies. They had conquered 1,000 worlds. And now they had come for Earth because humanity had refused to surrender their colonies in the Andromeda Reach. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Marcus Webb from his station, "the Virathi are not responding to any communication attempts. They have activated their weapons. Estimated time to full charge is 47 minutes. Catherine nodded slowly. Earth's defense fleet numbered 212 ships. Against 3,000, they would not last long. Perhaps an hour. Perhaps 2 if the universe was feeling generous. But generosity was not something the universe was known for. "All hands," Catherine said into the ship-wide communication system. "This is Admiral Cole. In less than 1 hour, we will face the greatest battle in human history. Many of us will not survive, but we will fight. We will fight because Earth is our home. We will fight because our families are down there. We will fight because giving up is not something humans know how to do." She paused, looking at the faces of her crew. Young men and women who had joined the fleet hoping for adventure, for discovery, for a chance to see the wonders of the universe. Now they were going to die defending a small blue planet against an enemy that outnumbered them 15-1. "I am proud to serve with each of you," Catherine continued. "Whatever happens today, know that you have my respect and my gratitude." Cole out. She released the communication button and turned back to the display. The Virathi ships were beautiful in a terrible way, all sharp angles and gleaming surfaces. They looked like weapons given form, built for one purpose and one purpose only. "Admiral," said Communications Officer Denise Hartley, her voice suddenly strange, "we are receiving incoming transmissions. Multiple sources. They are coming from... I do not understand. They are coming from everywhere." Catherine frowned. "Explain." "There are hundreds of transmission sources. They are using different frequencies, different protocols, different languages. But they are all directed at us. At Earth, put the first one on screen." The main display flickered, and a face appeared. It was not human. The being had skin like polished obsidian, smooth and dark and gleaming. Its eyes glowed with soft amber light, and when it spoke, its voice carried the weight of centuries. "Admiral Catherine Cole of the Terran Defense Fleet. I am High Commander Velith of the Thessari Armada. We have traveled for 3 months to reach your world. We have come to honor a debt that is 400 years old." Catherine stared at the alien face. She knew the Thessari. Every human knew the Thessari. They were one of the first alien species humanity had encountered when they ventured beyond their solar system. But they had not been allies. There was no treaty between their peoples. No agreement, no formal relationship at all. "High Commander," Catherine said carefully, "I am grateful for your words, but I do not understand. What debt do you speak of?" Velith's amber eyes seemed to soften. "In the year 2461 of your calendar, a plague swept through our homeworld. It killed millions in the first week. Our scientists could not find a cure. Our people were dying by the thousands every day. And then a human ship arrived. A medical research vessel that was simply passing through our territory." The Thessari commander paused. "There was a doctor on that ship. His name was Samuel Finch. He was young, barely 30 of your years. When he learned of our plague, he did not continue on his journey. He did not contact his government for instructions. He simply asked if he could help." Catherine felt something strange in her chest, a tightness that had nothing to do with fear. "Dr. Finch worked for 19 months, Velith continued. He barely slept. He barely ate. He worked alongside our scientists, learning our biology, understanding our physiology, pushing himself beyond all reasonable limits. And he succeeded. He created a cure that saved 2 billion Thesari lives. I have read about Dr. Finch, Catherine said quietly. He died on the journey home. His health never recovered from the strain. Yes, he gave his life for people who were strangers to him. People he had no obligation to help. People who could offer him nothing in return. Velith's voice was heavy with emotion. The Thesari have never forgotten. We have taught our children about Samuel Finch for 400 years. His name is spoken in our temples. His face is carved into our monuments. And we swore, as a people, that if humanity ever needed help, we would answer. The display split. Another face appeared, this one covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors as the being moved. I am Fleet Master Korath of the Diluvian Republic. In 2523, our homeworld faced destruction. The core of our planet was becoming unstable. We did not have the technology to stop it. But human engineers came to help us. They worked beside us for 6 years, sharing their knowledge, teaching us their techniques. Chief Engineer Maria Santos died in the final phase of the stabilization process. She knew the danger, but she refused to leave until the work was complete. Another face appeared, and another, and another. Marcus Webb stared at his console, his eyes wide with disbelief. Admiral, I am detecting incoming warp signatures. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They are converging on our position from every direction. Catherine watched as the screen continued to divide, face after face appearing. Species she recognized from history lessons. Species she had never heard of. Species that looked like nothing she could have imagined. The Kreth. Remember. The human captain who rescued our survivors. From the dying station, Vivantari remember the human. Diplomats who negotiated peace when our world was burning. The Elorian Collective remembers the human scientists who shared the cure for the crystal plague without asking for payment. Mandari Free States remember Grace Holloway, who spent 30 years bringing peace to our people. The people of Thalos 4 remember the human colonists who gave us shelter when we had nowhere else to go. And one by one, they spoke. 52 species. 52 debts. 52 moments across 400 years of human history. Small acts of kindness. Insignificant gestures. Moments that no one had thought to record in the great histories of human civilization. But the aliens remembered. They had all remembered. And now, as the Virathi prepared to destroy humanity, those 52 species had crossed the vastness of space to stand, beside the people who had once stood beside them. Denise Hartley was crying at her station, tears running down her cheeks as she worked to coordinate the incoming signals. Admiral, I am counting the incoming fleets. The Thesari have brought 400 ships. The Diluvian Republic has sent their entire home fleet of 300 vessels. The Kreth swarm numbers over 2,000 individual craft. Catherine Cole stood very still, watching the display as it filled with new signatures. Ships appearing from warp space in every direction. Ships of every size and shape and design. Ships crewed by beings who had traveled for months, for years, to reach this moment. Total count? She asked quietly. Marcus Webb checked his readings 3 times before answering. Approximately 12,000 vessels, Admiral. With more arriving every minute. Catherine looked at the Virathi fleet. 3,000 ships that had seemed so terrifying moments ago. 3,000 ships that had promised the end of humanity. They did not seem so terrifying anymore. Open a channel to all incoming fleets, Catherine said. Tell them that Earth welcomes them. Tell them that we are honored by their presence. And tell them that we are ready to fight beside them. She turned back to the display. Watching as humanity's salvation continued to arrive from the depths of space, 400 years of kindness. Coming home at last? On the Virathi command vessel, eternal supremacy. Overlord Thax watched the tactical display with growing disbelief. His 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, a sign of confusion that he had not displayed since he was a young warrior learning the art of conquest. Explain this, he demanded, his voice a low growl that made his officers flinch. Explain how this is possible. Tactical Officer Senth stood at his station, his claws trembling as he studied the incoming data. Overlord, we are detecting massive warp signatures from every direction. The ships are not human. They belong to dozens of different species. The Sari, Diluvion, Kreth, Alorian, Mindari, Vantari, at least 48 other species that we have identified so far. Thax snarled. I want to know why they are here. The humans have no allies. Our intelligence confirmed this before we launched our fleet. They have no treaties, no defensive agreements, no formal relationships with any major power. They are alone. They were alone. Overlord Senth said carefully. It appears that is no longer the case. Thax slammed his fist against the arm of his command chair, cracking the metal surface. He had spent 2 years planning this invasion. He had studied humanity with the obsessive attention of a predator learning the weaknesses of its prey. He knew their military strength, their economic resources, their political divisions. He knew that they were isolated, distrusted by many species, feared by others. He knew that when the Virathi came for them, no one would lift a finger to help, and yet here they were. Thousands of ships from dozens of species converging on Earth like a protective swarm. Ships that had traveled for months, crossing vast distances of empty space. Ships that had no logical reason to be here. Pull up everything we have on human diplomatic relations, Thax ordered. Every interaction, every contact, every recorded meeting between humans and other species. I want to understand what is happening. Senth worked quickly, his claws dancing over the control surfaces. The display filled with data, thousands of files organized by date and species. But as Thax began to review them, he found nothing that explained what he was seeing. There were no treaties, no alliances, no binding agreements of any kind. There were only stories. A human medical ship that had stopped to help a dying world. A human engineering team that had worked for years to save a planet from destruction. A human freighter captain who had risked his cargo and his life to rescue survivors from a damaged space station. A human diplomat who had spent decades negotiating peace. Between warring factions on a world that had nothing to offer in return, small moments, insignificant gestures. The kind of things that the Virathi would never bother to record. This is madness, Thax muttered, scrolling through file after file. They did these things for nothing. They received no payment, no territory, no resources. They simply helped, and then left. Ups! That is why the others have come, Senth suggested quietly. Perhaps they remember being helped. Thax turned to stare at his tactical officer with cold fury. Memory does not move fleets. Gratitude does not fuel warp engines. These species have traveled across galaxies to fight for a world that is not their own. There must be something more. Some hidden agreement. Some secret alliance that our intelligence failed to detect. Overlord, another officer spoke up. We are intercepting communications between the incoming fleets. They are not encrypted. They appear to be sharing the transmissions openly.
I display them.
The screen filled with voices, translated into Virathi by the ship's computer systems. And Thax listened as species after species explained why they had come. They helped us once. When no one else would, they asked for nothing in return. They treated us as equals, not as lesser beings to be conquered or exploited. They were kind when kindness cost them everything. We swore we would never forget. We swore that if they ever needed us, we would answer. Thax listened for a long time. He listened as the Sari spoke of a human doctor who had worked himself to death saving alien lives. He listened as the Diluvian spoke of a human engineer who had died ensuring their world would survive. He listened as species after species recounted moments of human kindness that had been passed down through generations like sacred texts, and slowly, terribly, he began to understand. They are not here because of treaties, he said at last, his voice barely above a whisper. They are not here because of alliances or obligations or political calculations. They are here because they want to be here, because they chose to come. Senth nodded slowly. It appears so, Overlord. But why? What could possibly motivate such behavior? They gain nothing from this fight. If they lose, their worlds will be vulnerable to our retaliation. If they win, the humans cannot repay them for the resources they have spent. It makes no strategic sense. Perhaps strategy is not the point, Synth said. Perhaps they simply wish to help those who once helped them. Thax stared at the display, watching as more and more ships continued to arrive. The count had passed 10,000 now, and it was still climbing. The Virathi fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming an hour ago, was now outnumbered 4-1. This changes nothing, Thax declared, straightening in his command chair. We are the Virathi Dominion. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We have never retreated, never surrendered, never known defeat. These collection of strays and debtors cannot match our warriors in battle. Overlord Synth said carefully. I feel I must point out that several of these species have significant military capabilities. The Dasari have one of the most advanced navies in the known galaxies. The Tarkali Empire has never lost a war. The Kreth swarm tactics are studied in our own military academies. And there are 49 other species out there, many of them with capabilities we have not fully assessed. Are you suggesting we retreat? Thax asked, his voice dangerous. I am suggesting we consider our options carefully. The humans were meant to be an easy conquest, a demonstration of Virathi power. But the situation has changed. We are now facing a coalition of species that, combined, may exceed our military strength. And they appear to be highly motivated. Thax was silent for a long moment. He had risen to the rank of Overlord through a combination of tactical brilliance and ruthless determination. He had never backed down from a fight, never shown weakness to an enemy. But he had also never been stupid. And what he was seeing on the display was not the easy victory he had been promised. Continue monitoring the situation, he said at last. I want detailed analysis of every fleet that has arrived. Weapons, capabilities, shield strengths, tactical doctrines, everything. Yes, Overlord. Thax turned back to the display. Watching as the human homeworld grew smaller behind the growing wall of alien ships, he had come to Earth expecting to find a helpless prey, isolated and afraid. Instead, he had found something he did not understand. 52 species, united by nothing but memory. 52 species, fighting for a world that was not their own. 52 species bound together by moments of kindness that had happened centuries ago. It made no sense. It followed no logic that the Virathi understood. And for the first time in his long career of conquest, Overlord Thax felt something he had never felt before. He felt uncertain. The Virathi had conquered through strength, fear, and the cold calculation of power. They had never needed to understand concepts like gratitude or kindness or willing sacrifice. They had never needed to know why beings would fight for something other than territory or resources or survival. But now, watching the alien fleets gather around Earth like a protective shell, Thax began to wonder if perhaps the Virathi had missed something important. Something that their intelligence reports had never captured. Something that their analysts had dismissed as irrelevant. The humans had not built an empire. They had not conquered territories or subjugated lesser species. They had simply traveled among the stars, helping those who needed help. Asking for nothing in return. And now, when the humans needed help, the universe was answering checks. Did not understand it. He was not sure he wanted to understand it, but he could not deny that it was happening. Right before his eyes, humanity was not alone. They never had been. Admiral Catherine Cole had never walked through anything like the Deer. Gathering Station, the Elorian Collective had built it in 6 hours. Constructing a massive diplomatic platform in the empty space between Earth and the Moon, it was a marvel of engineering, a structure that should have taken years to build, created in less than a single day. We are efficient when properly motivated, the Elorian representative had explained, their form shifting like living crystal. Defending those who once defended us is proper motivation. Now Catherine walked through corridors that hummed with strange energy, passing beings that defied description. Some had tentacles. Some had wings. Some floated through the air without any visible means of support. Some existed as clouds of glowing particles that somehow held together in shapes that suggested faces and bodies. They all watched her as she passed. They all knew who she was. And in their eyes, she saw something that made her uncomfortable. They looked at her the way children looked at heroes from old stories. Admiral Cole. The voice came from behind her, deep and resonant like stones grinding together. Catherine turned to find a towering figure approaching. Easily 3 meters tall, with 4 powerful arms and skin that looked like living metal. She recognized the species immediately. Tarkali warriors, whose empire had never known defeat. "I am Grand Marshal Vithras," the being said, bowing its massive head in greeting. "I command the Tarkali forces that have come to defend your world. I wished to meet you in person before the battle begins." Catherine returned the bow, trying to match the formal gesture she had seen in diplomatic recordings. "Grand Marshal, I am honored by your presence and by the presence of your fleet. But I confess that I do not know what debt your people believe they owe us. Our records of first contact with the Tarkali are limited." Vithras made a sound that might have been laughter, a rumbling noise that vibrated through the floor. Limited indeed. Because there were no formal records. What happened between our peoples was too small to be recorded in the great histories. Too insignificant for your diplomats to remember. The Grand Marshal gestured for Catherine to walk beside him, and they moved through the station together. An unlikely pair drawing stares from every species they passed. "In the year 2612 of your calendar," Vithras began, "a human cargo ship called the Wanderer's Rest was traveling through the outer edges of Tarkali space. They were traders, carrying supplies between colony worlds. They had no reason to be in our territory, and we had no interest in them. They were simply passing through." Catherine listened carefully, matching her pace to the alien's longer stride. But then their sensors detected something. An escape pod, damaged and drifting, its power systems failing. Inside was a Tarkali child who had been lost for 3 weeks. "My daughter." The Grand Marshal's voice changed, becoming softer despite its rumbling depth. "She had been on a ship that was attacked by raiders. The crew managed to get her into an escape pod before the ship was destroyed. But the pod was damaged in the escape. Its beacon was broken. Its life support was failing. She would have died within hours if the Wanderer's Rest had not found her." "What happened?" Catherine asked. "Your people had no obligation to stop. No reason to help. We were not allies. We were not friends. We were strangers from a species that many humans feared because of our warrior traditions. But Captain Dennis Young ordered his ship to change course. He used his last medical supplies to stabilize my daughter. He altered his journey by 2 months to bring her home safely." Vithras stopped walking, turning to face Catherine with eyes that held centuries of memory. "When my father offered payment, your Captain Young refused. He said that helping a lost child find their way home was not something you could put a price on. He said it was simply what people did for each other among the stars." Catherine felt her throat tighten. She had never heard of Captain Dennis Young. She had never heard of the Wanderer's Rest. It was such a small story, such an insignificant moment in the vast sweep of human history. But the Tarkali had remembered. "My daughter grew up to become our greatest diplomat," Vithras continued. "She united 12 warring clans that had fought for generations. She brought peace to our empire. She married and had children and grandchildren. She died last century, old and honored, surrounded by a family that loved her." The Grand Marshal placed one massive hand on Catherine's shoulder, a gesture of connection across the void between their species. All of it because a human stranger chose kindness when he could have chosen to look away. All of it because Captain Young believed that helping others was simply what people did. Catherine did not trust herself to speak. She simply nodded. "We bring 300 warships," Vithras said. "We bring the finest warriors in the Tarkali Empire. But we bring something more. We bring the lesson your captain taught us. That sometimes the greatest strength is simply choosing to help." They continued walking, and Catherine heard more stories. A Kreth elder told her about a human pilot named Carol Hayes, who had flown supply runs to their hive world during a famine. taking trip after trip until her ship literally fell apart from the strain. A Vantari ambassador spoke of human doctors who had traveled to their plague worlds, knowing they might never return, because someone had to help. A Mendari warrior recounted the story of Grace Holloway, a human diplomat who had spent 30 years living among their people, learning their customs, understanding their conflicts, working patiently and tirelessly to bring peace to factions that had warred for centuries. She had never asked for payment. She had never sought recognition. She had simply believed that the Mendari deserved peace, and she had devoted her life to making it happen. She died on our world, the Mendari said. We buried her with the honors of our greatest heroes. Her name is spoken in our prayers. And when we heard that Earth was in danger, there was no debate. There was no discussion. We simply gathered our fleet and came. Catherine met with representatives from every species that had answered the call. Some had traveled for months to reach Earth. Some had crossed distances so vast that Catherine could not comprehend them. Some had left their homeworlds undefended, trusting that their neighbors would not take advantage of their absence. Why? She asked an Elorian elder, a being whose crystalline form shifted through colors that had no names in any human language. Why risk so much for us? The Elorian considered the question, their form pulsing with inner light. When your scientists came to our world, they said at last we were dying. The crystal plague was consuming us, and we had no cure. Your people could have simply studied us, could have observed our extinction and written scientific papers about it. Instead, they worked beside us. They shared their knowledge freely. They refused to leave until we were saved. The Elorian's form shifted, taking on a shape that Catherine somehow recognized as a smile. Dr. Patricia Marsh was the leader of your team. She worked for 3 years without rest. When she finally found the cure, she refused to patent it. She refused to sell it. She gave it to us freely, saying that life was not something that should be bought and sold. And then she went home, and we never saw her again. I never heard of Dr. Marsh, Catherine admitted. Of course not. She did not seek fame or recognition. She simply helped us because we needed help. That is what we remember. That is why we are here. The elder's form pulsed with emotion. Your people have a gift, Admiral Cole. You help others without calculating the cost. You show kindness without expecting a return. You treat strangers as friends waiting to be met. It is a gift that many species do not possess. It is a gift that changed our world. Catherine thought about all the stories she had heard, all the small moments of human kindness that had been forgotten by humanity but remembered by those who had received them. Doctors and engineers and diplomats and traders and soldiers, ordinary people who had simply chosen to help when they could have chosen to walk away. They had not been trying to build an empire. They had not been trying to create alliances or secure resources or expand human influence. They had simply been human, with all the compassion and curiosity and stubborn refusal to give up that defines their species. And now, 400 years later, that kindness was coming home. We are ready to fight. Catherine said to the assembled representatives, we are ready to stand beside you against the Vairathi. But I want you to know that whatever happens tomorrow, we are grateful. We are honored. And we will never forget what you have done for us. The Elorian elder spoke for all of them. We know you will not forget. That is why we came. Because you are the species that remembers. The species that helps. The species that taught us what it means to be truly strong. Catherine looked at the gathering of alien faces. Beings from 52 different worlds who had traveled across the vastness of space to defend a planet that was not their own. And for the first time since the Vairathi fleet had appeared, she believed that Earth might survive. The Vairathi attacked at dawn, Earth time. Their 3,000 warships surged forward in perfect formation. Weapons blazing with the fury of a species that had never known defeat. Overlord Thax had decided that hesitation was weakness, that the strange coalition of aliens defending Earth would scatter when faced with true Vairathi power. He was wrong, that the Sari struck first. Their sleek silver vessels cut through the Vairathi formation, like blades through water, weapons firing with deadly precision. High Commander Velith led from the front, his flagship dancing between enemy ships, drawing fire away from the slower vessels behind him. To the humans who saved us, Velith transmitted on an open channel. For Dr. Samuel Finch, who worked himself to death for strangers, for every human who has ever helped another being simply because it was the right thing to do. The Thessery had studied human combat recordings for centuries, admiring the creativity and adaptability that defined human warfare. They had learned from human tactics, human strategies, human refusal to accept defeat. Now they fought with that same spirit, pushing themselves beyond their normal limits because the cause demanded nothing less. On the left flank, the Diluvian Republic held their position with grim determination. Their massive dreadnoughts absorbed punishment that would have destroyed lesser vessels. Their shields flickering, but holding against the Virathi assault. Fleet Master Korath commanded from the bridge of his flagship, watching his people die with a calm that hid his breaking heart. "We learned from the humans how to build shields that protect rather than destroy," he said to his bridge crew. Chief Engineer Maria Santos taught us that the greatest technology is technology that preserves life. Today we honor her lesson. Today we protect others as she once protected us. The Diluvian shields had been designed with human help, incorporating principles that human engineers had shared freely during those desperate years when the Diluvian homeworld was dying. Now those shields stood between Earth and destruction, gift returned across centuries. In the spaces between the larger ships, the Kreth swarm moved like a living cloud. Thousands of small fighters, each crewed by a single Kreth warrior, darted through the battlefield with impossible speed. They targeted Virathi weapons systems, burning them out with precision strikes before disappearing into the chaos of battle. The Kreth fought differently than most species. They did not think of themselves as individuals in combat, but as parts of a greater whole. Each pilot knew that their life was less important than the mission, less important than the swarm, less important than the people they were protecting. A human had taught them this. A pilot named Carol Hayes, who had flown supply runs to their hive world during the Great Famine, making trip after trip in a ship that was falling apart around her. She had told them that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision that something else was more important than fear. Today, the Kreth decided that Earth was more important than fear, and at the center of it all, the human fleet fought with desperate determination. 212 ships against 3,000? Impossible odds that should have meant quick death. But they were not alone anymore. They had never been alone, even when they thought they were. Admiral Catherine Cole commanded from the bridge of the Enduring Hope, coordinating between species that had never fought together before. It should have been chaos. It should have been confusion, 52 different military traditions trying to work as one. But it was not chaos. It was something else entirely. "Sorry, Wing. Break right and draw fire from the Virathi heavy cruisers," Catherine ordered. "Diluvian dreadnoughts, advance and cover the Kreth swarm. Tarkali assault ships hit them on the flank while they're distracted." The orders went out, translated into 52 languages by communication officers who had been working without sleep for days. And the orders were followed, not because the aliens had to obey a human admiral, but because they chose to trust her. Admiral Lieutenant Marcus Webb called out from his station. "The Virathi are bringing their flagship forward. The Eternal Supremacy is moving to the front of their formation." Catherine saw it on the display. The massive Virathi command vessel pushing through the battle, its weapons carving paths of destruction through everything in its way. Overlord Thax had decided to break the coalition by sheer force, by demonstrating that the Virathi could not be stopped by kindness or gratitude or any other soft emotion. "All ships, concentrate fire on the flagship," Catherine ordered. "If we can take out their command, we can break their coordination." The coalition fleet responded. This Ari ship swarmed around the Eternal Supremacy like angry insects, their weapons scoring its shields. Diluvian dreadnoughts laid down covering fire, forcing the Virathi escort ships to fall back. Tarkali assault vessels closed in, their warriors eager for the honor of striking the killing blow. But the Eternal Supremacy was the pride of the Virathi fleet, built to withstand anything the galaxy could throw at it. Its shields held. Its weapons continued to fire, destroying coalition ships by the dozen. "We cannot break through," Valeth reported, frustration evident in his translated voice. "Their shields are too strong." Catherine studied the display, looking for any weakness, any opportunity, and then she saw it. There, she said, pointing to a section of the flagship's hull. Their shield generator. If we can hit it directly, their shields will collapse. The generator is protected by 3 layers of armor, Marcus Webb said. No weapon in the Coalition fleet can penetrate that. No single weapon, Catherine agreed. But what about 52 species firing at exactly the same point at exactly the same time? The bridge was silent for a moment. Can we coordinate that precisely? Denise Hartley asked. We've never trained together. We don't use the same targeting systems or the same weapon types. The timing would have to be perfect. Then we'll make it perfect, Catherine said. Open a channel to all fleet commanders. The channel opened, and Catherine found herself looking at 52 faces on her display. Aliens from across the galaxy, beings she had never met before today, warriors who had traveled for months to fight beside her. We have one chance to end this, she told them. One shot at the Virathi flagship. It requires all of us firing at exactly the same target at exactly the same moment. Our weapons are different. Our systems are different, but our purpose is the same. Can we do this? Grand Marshal Vithris spoke first. The Tarkali have never failed to hit what we aim at. Tell us where to shoot. The Thesari will match your timing precisely, Valeth added. We've been practicing coordinated strikes for centuries. One by one, the fleet commanders agreed. 52 species, 52 military traditions, 52 sets of weapons and targeting systems, all committing to a single synchronized attack. Transmitting targeting coordinates now, Catherine said. All ships, prepare to fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The universe seemed to hold its breath, and then 52 fleets fired as one. Energy beams and plasma bolts and kinetic projectiles and weapons that had no names in any human language. All converging on a single point on the hull of the Eternal Supremacy. Different colors, different speeds, different destructive principles. All striking within a fraction of a second of each other. The Virathi shields resisted for almost a full second. Then they collapsed. The armor beneath held for another half-second. Then it crumbled, and the shield generator, the heart of the flagship's defensive systems, exploded in a burst of energy that lit up the battlefield like a new star. Direct hit, Marcus Webb shouted. Their shields are down. They are defenseless. The Coalition fleet did not hesitate. Ships that had been holding back now surged forward, weapons firing without restraint. The Eternal Supremacy, the pride of the Virathi, Dominion, began to burn. On the bridge of his dying ship, Overlord Thax watched his dreams of conquest crumble around him. He had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, a simple demonstration of Virathi superiority. Instead, he had found something he did not understand. Signal the fleet, he ordered, his voice hollow. Full retreat. All ships returned to Virathi space. The Virathi fled. 3,000 ships had arrived expecting conquest. Less than 1,500 made it back to their territory. Behind them, they left the wreckage of their ambitions and the burning hulk of their flagship. The battle was over. Earth had survived, on the bridge of the enduring hope. Admiral Catherine Cole sat down in her command chair, suddenly aware of how tired she was. Around her, the bridge crew celebrated, cheering and embracing each other with the relief of those who had expected to die. Admiral Denise Hartley said, tears streaming down her face, "We're receiving transmissions from the planet. They know. Everyone knows. The whole world is celebrating." Catherine nodded, unable to speak. They had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that had never known defeat, they had won. But not because of human strength or human technology or human strategy. They had won because of kindness. Because 400 years ago, ordinary humans had helped strangers who needed help. Because those strangers had remembered. Because when Earth called, 52 species had answered. Catherine looked at the display. At the Coalition fleet that was now regrouping around Earth, ships from 52 different worlds. Crewed by beings who looked nothing like humans, who thought nothing like humans. Who lived in ways that humans could barely comprehend. But they were family now. bound not by blood or treaty, but by something stronger, by memory, by gratitude, by the simple, profound truth that kindness once given never truly dies. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Earth. The scars of that day were still visible in the orbital debris that technicians worked day and night to clear, in the memorials that now dotted every continent, in the changed way that humans looked up at the stars. Admiral Catherine Cole stood on the surface of Luna, Earth's moon, before the newly constructed Memorial of Remembrance. The monument stretched 4 kilometers across the gray landscape, a vast wall of polished stone inscribed with names. Human names. This Ari names. Diluvian names. Names from 52 species, written in 52 different scripts, united in death as they had been united in life. Around her, thousands of beings had gathered for the anniversary ceremony. Some had tentacles that waved gently in the artificial atmosphere of the memorial dome. Some had wings that caught the light from Earth hanging in the black sky above. Some floated without touching the ground, their forms shifting like living clouds of energy. They looked nothing alike. They shared no common biology, no common history, no common culture, but they shared something else. Something that had brought them across galaxies to stand together on this small moon, orbiting a small planet. In a corner of space that most of the universe had never heard of, Catherine stepped up to the speaking platform. Looking out at the gathered assembly, she had prepared a speech, had written and rewritten it dozens of times. But now the words on her prepared notes seemed inadequate. 412 years ago, she began, her voice carried across the dome by translation systems that converted her words into 52 languages simultaneously. Humanity took its first steps among the stars. We were young. We were foolish. We did not know what we would find out there. We did not know if the universe would welcome us or destroy us. She paused, looking at the faces before her. Alien faces. Strange faces. Faces that had become impossibly familiar. We found wonders out there. We found horrors. We found friends and enemies and everything in between. But most importantly, we found you. All of you. And in finding you, we discovered something about ourselves. Catherine turned to look at the wall of names stretching into the distance. We discovered that the universe is vast and cold and indifferent, that the distances between stars are measured in light years, and the distances between species are measured in even gray. To our gulfs of understanding, we discovered that in all that darkness, it would be easy to become small, to become selfish, to care only for our own survival and let the rest of the universe burn. She turned back to the assembly. But we also discovered that we did not have to accept that darkness. We discovered that kindness is not weakness, that compassion is not foolishness, that helping those in need, even when it costs us everything, even when we have nothing to gain, is not a burden, but a privilege. It is the very thing that makes us worthy of the stars. High Commander Velith of the Thessaly stepped forward, his amber eyes glowing in the soft light. And we discovered something as well. We discovered that debts of kindness are not debts at all. They are invitations. Invitations to become better than we were. Invitations to join a community not bound by treaties or trade agreements, but by the simple recognition that we are all travelers on the same journey. The Thessaly commander looked at Catherine with something that might have been affection. For 400 years, we told our children about Dr. Samuel Finch. We told them how he came to our world as a stranger and left as a hero. We told them that humans were different, that they helped without calculating the cost, without measuring the benefit, without asking what they would receive in return. We told them that if humanity ever needed help, we would answer. Fleet Master Korath of the Diluvian Republic spoke next, his scaled face catching the light. Chief Engineer Maria Santos died saving our world. She knew the danger. She knew that the final phase of stabilizing our planet's core might kill her. She went anyway. When we asked her why, she said that some things were worth dying for. She said that if she could give our children a world to live on, her death would be a small price to pay. The Diluvian's voice grew rough with emotion. We have never forgotten her sacrifice. Her name is inscribed in our greatest temple. Her face is carved into the stone of our capital city. And when Earth called for help, there was no debate among our people. There was only the memory of a human woman who gave her life for strangers, and the knowledge that we owed her everything. Grand Marshal Vithras of the Tarkali stepped forward, towering over the other speakers. The Virathi believed that strength meant conquest. That power meant domination. They could not understand why 52 species would travel across galaxies to defend a world that was not their own. They saw our actions as madness, or debt, or obligation. The massive warrior shook his head slowly. They were wrong. We came because humanity taught us what true strength looks like. Not the strength of weapons or armies or fleets that can destroy worlds. The strength to reach out. The strength to trust. The strength to help when there is nothing to gain. The strength to believe that kindness matters even when the universe seems to prove otherwise. The ceremony continued for hours. Representatives from each species spoke in turn, sharing stories that had been passed down through generations. The human freighter captain who had altered his course by weeks to bring a lost alien child home. The human doctors who had traveled to plague worlds, knowing they might never return. The human diplomats who had spent lifetimes learning alien languages and customs, just so they could understand. Small moments. Insignificant gestures, the kind of things that would never be recorded in the great histories of human civilization, but the aliens remembered them. They had built temples and monuments and holidays around these memories. They had taught their children that humans were worth knowing, worth trusting, worth defending. As the ceremony ended, Catherine walked among the gathered beings. The formal occasion had given way to something more intimate. Groups of different species talking quietly with each other. Sharing stories and memories and hopes for the future, she stopped before a young Kreth warrior who stood alone near the wall of names, staring at a section inscribed with the symbols of his people. "Are you looking for someone?" Catherine asked. The young Kreth turned to face her. He was barely old enough to have fought in the battle, one of the youngest warriors in the swarm that had defended Earth. "My aunt," he said. "She died in the final assault on the Virathi flagship. Her name is there on the wall." "I am sorry," Catherine said. She was very brave. The young warrior was silent for a moment. Then he spoke again. "Can I ask you something, Admiral? Something I have wondered about since I was a child. Of course, why did you help us? All those years ago, when your captain, Carol Hayes, flew supply missions to our hive world during the famine, she nearly died. Her ship was destroyed. She gained nothing from helping us. Why did she do it?" Catherine considered the question carefully. It was the same question that had been asked again and again by species after species for 400 years. Why did humans help when they had nothing to gain? "I think," she said slowly, "that she did it because she saw people who were suffering and knew she could help. I think that for humans, that has always been enough. We do not need treaties or agreements or promises of repayment. We just need to know that someone needs us. That is enough." The young Kreth nodded slowly. "My grandmother met Captain Hayes once. She told me that when the captain delivered the supplies, she was smiling. She was happy to help. Grandmother said that she had never seen anything like it before. A stranger giving everything she had to people she did not know and being happy about it." The warrior stood straighter, his posture formal and proud. "I came to Earth because of that story, because I wanted to be worthy of it. I wanted my grandchildren to tell stories about me someday. Stories about the time we flew across the galaxy to help the humans who had helped us. I wanted to add my chapter to the tale." Catherine felt tears forming in her eyes. She had heard so many stories today, so many memories of human kindness that she had never known existed. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things, not for glory or reward, but simply because it was the right thing to do. "You have added your chapter," she told the young warrior, "and it is a chapter we will never forget." The Kreth bowed, a gesture that Catherine recognized as one of deep respect. Then he turned and walked away to join his people. Catherine remained at the wall of names, looking up at the endless list of beings who had given their lives to defend Earth, human and alien, familiar and strange, all united in sacrifice. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Grand Marshal Vethris appeared beside her, his massive form casting a long shadow across the polished stone. "You were troubled," he observed. "This should be a day of celebration, yet you seem sad." Catherine sighed. "I am thinking about all the people we lost, all the beings who died for a world that was not their own. I am wondering if it was worth it." Vithres was silent for a long moment. Then he reached out with one of his forearms and placed his hand gently on the wall, touching a section inscribed with Tarkali names. "Let me tell you what I have learned in 200 years of life," he said. "The universe is vast and old and mostly empty. Stars burn out, worlds die, species rise and fall and are forgotten. In the grand scale of things, nothing we do matters. Nothing lasts forever." He turned to look at Catherine. "But that is the wrong way to think about things. We do not matter because the universe cares about us. We matter because we care about each other. The connections we make, the kindness we show, the love we share, those things matter because we decide they matter. And when we decide that something matters, we make it true." The Grand Marshal gestured at the wall at the names of the dead. These beings did not die for nothing. They died for something they believed in. They died for friendship and loyalty and the simple truth that some things are worth fighting for. And because they died, billions of others will live. Children will be born who would never have existed. Stories will be told that will inspire generations we will never meet. The ripples of their sacrifice will spread across the universe long after their names are forgotten. He looked at Catherine with ancient eyes. "That is the legacy of humanity. Not your technology or your military power or your economic strength. Your legacy is the way you make others feel, the way you make them believe that they matter, the way you show them that kindness is possible even in a cold and indifferent universe." Catherine nodded slowly, understanding, at last, what humanity had built, without ever meaning to. Not an empire, not an alliance, not a dominion, a family, 52 species, spread across countless galaxies, bound not by treaty or obligation, but by something far stronger, by memory, by gratitude, by the simple, profound recognition that kindness once given echoes across centuries. And in that echoing, in that remembering, in that gathering of strangers who had become family, humanity found something they had been searching for since they first looked up at the stars. They found that they were not alone. They never had been. They just needed to help others first. And the universe, in its own strange way, helped them back. Catherine Cole turned away from the wall of names and walked toward the future. Surrounded by beings from 52 different worlds, they had come as strangers. They had fought as allies, and they would remain as family, forever bound by the memory of kindness that had crossed the stars.